So if you've ever taken a trip with your family, and you begin to drive, and you begin to head in that direction, and you've been driving for a while, and it doesn't matter. Eventually, however long the trip is, but eventually, someone's going to ask that dreaded question. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Someone's going to ask the dreaded question. Are we there yet? His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. His ways are higher than my ways. We've been learning about on the journey. But when you take a journey, one of the first questions you ask is, where are you going? Shortly behind that is, how are you going to get there? And we discovered that sometimes you need to get the how out of there. Don't be so concerned about the how that you don't begin to move towards that destination. And then even in the where, you don't need to know every exact detail of where you're going in order to begin to move. Because just like with Abram, who was later called Abraham, when he was told to go to Canaan, the promised land that God had given him, he said to go to a land that I will show you and keep going until you arrive. And it says that he did that and he arrived in Canaan. So it's important that you begin to move, to begin to head in that direction. And don't despise small beginnings. Every journey begins with a single step, even if that's a baby step. On our journey, we don't need to know how or even where. Just point me in the right direction. Just point us in the right direction and we can start moving. One step at a time, step by step, continually asking for directions as we go. We need to learn to hear His voice, to continue to move in the direction that He would have us to go. Even if it's just heading north or south or east or west. And eventually we'll fine tune those directions. But if you've been on that journey any length of time, eventually someone is going to ask the question, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Sometimes we feel like that, right? Are we there yet? Have we arrived? Have we finally gotten there? And I got news for you. Even if you do, then there's likely going to be another destination ahead in your future. But sometimes we find ourselves in that situation, right? Where we've been going in circles, or we're lost, headed in the wrong direction. We feel like our journey is stalled. Maybe you found yourself in that situation, just like the Israelites in the desert, wandering around in circles for 40 years. I know I found myself in those situations many times. Over the years, it seems like many times I've headed in the wrong direction, the wrong destination, spent too long, wandered in the desert, stalled, lost, went around in circles, on and on and on. But that doesn't mean that my journey is over. I'm just haven't arrived yet. Maybe you find yourself in that same situation today. I want to encourage you because we need to learn to follow the directions to the letter. To the letter. To the letter means that you need to be reading the letters, right? In His Word. In His Word. You need to be reading His Word. And you need to be talking to Him to get the directions. Daily directions. Just like in those old days where we had to get in the car and I had my wife to navigate. It would say, turn left here, turn right. Now today we have what? The GPS, or we have on our phones where it will tell us. And it's very nice, very convenient. They'll say, turn right in 1,000 feet. One thing I've learned, if nothing else, from these directions is that 1,000 feet is a lot further than what you think it is. Because you think, oh, I'm almost there, 1,000 feet. And it seems to go on forever before I turn right now, turn right here. In Joshua 1:8, it says that I will make your ways prosperous and you will have good success. But in that, sometimes we need to have an attitude change. Just like sometimes in your car, you have to have an oil change, right? Or some work done. You ever been on a trip or a vacation somewhere and had something go wrong with your car and you had to stop and have it fixed? One time we were on a trip and had a nail or something in a tire, and it was okay. It didn't go. It had a slow leak, but the next morning I had to go to the tire shop in another state and get my tire fixed. And so it's like that. Maybe you find yourself on a trip and you have a flat tire that needs to be fixed, or you're in dire need of an oil change, an attitude adjustment. In our little example here, because sometimes when you begin your journey, a new journey or a turn in your journey, it's easy to despise those small beginnings, those baby steps. But remember that tiny progress is progress. Don't despair and don't despise your small beginnings. Don't talk ugly about it. Watch your words and what you say. Let God do an attitude adjustment. Because there is power in the tongue. There is power in your words and what you say. There's power in the spoken word. And there is power in your thoughts. Learn to trust the Lord. As a man thinketh, so is he. 3 John 2 says that, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So although the roads of life may be rough at times, God has places to take us and a destination that can include prosperity. If we're following Him and His directions, He can lead us to that promised land. And it's not all about what we get or some reward, but it's more about the development of ourselves and Him changing us and making us into who He would have us to be. That's really the better thing, right? Than some monetary gain. So I'm reminded in the Bible about the lepers who had to make a march for their own deliverance. Sometimes you have to make a march for your own deliverance. A march of your faith. A demonstration. Remember the demonstrations that took place in the 60s? Marches, sit-ins, civil rights marches, demonstrations, right? To demonstrate. They showed what they believed by their movement, or what their movement represented. This same thing has been happening in our recent history. These peaceful protests, marches, riots, or violence. The action or movement demonstrates belief. It shows what we believe. Our actions. When we begin to move, it demonstrates what we believe. When we move, it shows who we are. By what we do, by where we are headed, and our actions represent what we believe. As a man thinketh, so goeth he. Every journey begins with a single step. Small steps lead to small strides. Just like those baby steps, right? A baby learns to crawl, and then the baby takes its first step. And it stands out there a little while, maybe falls down a little bit and gets back up. Then it begins to take a few steps and walk. And it stumbles along the way. Then it walks faster until it's running. And soon that baby is running across the room. So choose your words wisely. Build up yourself and build up others. Because His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. And His ways are higher than my ways. This has been the encouraging word.
And the people said, Amen.